Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch and would like to purchase it at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below to buy it at JazzTime.com. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Self-Winding Chronograph Rubber Clad in rose gold with a gray dial, reference 26238OK.OO.A002CA.01. I will tell you a little bit about the history of the Offshore, then tell you about where this watch stands in the lineup of other similar Offshores, namely the rubber clad, then tell you about the case bezel dial bracelet movement in detail, and then finally give you my thoughts. So let's start with the history. The Offshore came out in 1993, and it is now approximately 30 years old. It came from the Royal Oak. The Royal Oak was the predecessor. It was the original, the OG, and that was designed in 1972, which is approximately 50 years ago, by Gerald Genta, and it became the world's more or less first luxury sports watch. And from there, 30 years later, or 20 years after the inception of the Royal Oak, the Offshore was designed not by Gerald Genta, but by a new designer who AP commissioned to make a sportier version of the Royal Oak. And they took the Royal Oak design, beefed it up, made the case bigger, stronger, thicker, more sporty, and oversized the bezel. Just basically took the Royal Oak and made it just one step bigger, almost like a Royal Oak on steroids. And the result was the Offshore, a very, very sporty watch. In fact, it's their sportiest collection of watches. Okay, so that's a little bit about the history, and it's been through many variations. And they have it in like limited editions, tons of variations of it, and this is the final evolution of it. So now I'm going to tell you about where this watch stands in the lineup of other similar rubber clads. Now, why is it called a rubber clad? Well, it's not called a rubber clad anywhere on their website for this one, but this watch is known as the rubber clad. Why? Well, because the bezel is put in rubber. Now you might wonder, well, what's the big deal? Well, in fact, interestingly enough, it's actually coated in rubber, but the bezel is not made of rubber. Actually, if you take the bezel, if you take off this rubber coating, then there's actually gold underneath. That's right. It's strange. You would think that to put a precious metal and then hide it beneath rubber would seem very pointless, but that's the level of detail that AP does. In fact, the original rubber clad, which was produced like in I don't know, somewhere around 2000s or something like that, early 2000s, basically like 20 years ago, the rubber clad, which looks very similar to this one, we'll get into the details when I tell you about the specifics about how the new one is different and better, is that when the first rubber clad came out, people realized that the bezel would get dented and it would start to not look very good. Now you could go back to AP, pay like $2,000 and they could put on some fresh new rubber. But you could also, on the contrary, you could just take the entire rubber off. And what people found was there was actually rose gold underneath it. And then you can give it a little polish, and then boom, the whole watch looks like it's rose gold. So that's one way to do it. But this is AP's way of doing what I call quiet luxury by making the bezel and the pushers as well as the strap all in rubber. It's almost like a G-Shock, except super expensive, going to cost you like $50,000. So it's a sports watch that is very luxurious in the spirit of Offshore, but it's still using very luxurious materials, gold, but it is covered with rubber, and that theme goes throughout. It has its beauty, its subtle beauty, which I'm going to explain to you. Probably you can see it from the video, but I'll explain to you anyways. Okay, so the first rubber clad came out in approximately 2000, and it had a gray dial, Then they had a slightly different remake of it in like maybe 5 or 8 years later. And then they stopped making it altogether. They stopped doing the rubber clad. So for about 10 years, they stopped making the rubber clad at all. And just recently in 22, it was released as what you see in front of you. Okay. So this is I would call this the third generation of it. The first generation had a closed case back. Actually, the second generation also had a closed case back. There was just some minor changes in it, minor changes in the dial. And the final version is what you see here, the third generation rubber clad. And it's part of the 42 millimeter collection. The Offshore comes in basically nowadays size 43, which is chronographs, and it has these very thick pushers, or the smaller version, which is 42, which is what you see here. It's the smallest Offshore for men, that is, and it's in this chronograph, and it has these circular pusher style instead. They also make a diver. There's also 42, but it's not a chronograph. Okay. All right. And for women, they make some 38s and even 37s. Actually, men can wear the 37 and 38 as well. But but most men are wearing the 42, because if you look at the 37 millimeter Offshores that they're making, they look like they're geared toward women because they have diamonds, they have these, feminine colors. So I'm going to have to say those ones are basically for women. Okay. All right. Now let's start talking about the specifics of this watch. Starting with the case. Now the case is slightly changed from the first and second generation in that, but not much. It looks more or less the same, but the beveled edge is a little bit thicker on the newer version, which is what you see here. The beveled edge is the edge of the case. Instead of going down at a 90-degree angle, it goes sort of at a 45-degree angle, and then it has a high polish, which extends the line of the case into the bracelet so that the watch looks harmoniously made all by one designer, which actually it was. Okay, so the case more or less is the same. Now, 42 millimeters is the smallest, as I told you, for the Offshore, for men that is. So it's not a gigantic size, and you'll see when I try it on my wrist, it fits just fine. Now the thickness, though, interestingly, is 15.3 millimeters. So if you turn it on its side, you'll see that the thickness is 15.3 millimeters. Now, interestingly, the 43 millimeter is actually thinner than the 42 millimeter. I'm not sure why exactly that is. The 43 millimeter is 14.5 millimeters, and this 42 millimeters is 15.3 millimeters. So, but that doesn't really change it that much. It's a little bit thinner or smaller, but a little bit thicker. But as you can see, when I try it on, as you will see, it doesn't make the watch unwearable. In fact, it's very wearable. And just to give you some reference, okay, a deep sea is something like 17 millimeters at its peak. I mean, it's massive. So this is not that massive. I mean, 15, it's a large watch. I'm not going to say it's small. It's definitely large if you compare it to Patek, but it's not overly large. It is right for what it's supposed to be, which is a big watch with a big sports watch, big luxurious sports watch with quite a bit of wrist presence, and in some way undercover in some way. Okay, for those who know, they'll be like, wow, you're wearing a $50,000 watch covered in rubber. Okay, anyways, so that is the case. Let's move on to the, oh yeah, so I should also say that it is made of 18 karat rose gold. So it may look a little bit like yellow, but AP is not making a whole bunch of yellow gold. They're making almost all their watches in rose gold. So this one is rose. They actually call it pink gold. I mean, sure. It has a mixture of copper in it that gives it this hue. Okay, anyhow. And the pushers, by the way, are actually covered in also rubber. But again, the underneath it's in rose gold. So there you have it. Okay, let's move on to the dial here. Now the dial is a mega tapisserie. AP also makes a petite tapisserie, which is the smaller waffle design. This is the bigger waffle. I kind of prefer the bigger waffle design on the bigger watch, which is the Offshore. And AP is calling this dial anthracite gray. I just call it gray, okay? And let me bring some notable details about this dial that make it so special. Well, in the older generation, they also did a gray, and they also did a mega tapestry, which did not change. But in this situation, do you notice that they did the AP sign in rose gold? They also did the outlines of the sub counter, as well as the hands, the hour, minute, seconds, all in rose gold. And they fashioned the hour markers 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and so on. They fashioned that in rose gold. In the previous generation, they did not do that. They only put the hands fashioned in rose gold, which is a kind of an awkward thing because the rest of it was like colors that didn't really match the watch. Now, in this case, everything matches. You have rose gold accents throughout the dial that lend a bridge between the case and the rest of the watch to the dial, so that it looks like the dial was presented and created just for this watch. And I really think that yes, these are small details between the previous generation and this generation, but those details make a difference, right? When for example, Porsche redesigns their 911, or Mercedes redesigns their S-Class, they don't completely change the design. They add little things, evolve it so that it makes the car or watch look like it's perfectly designed. And in this case, I have to say they really hit it on the head. Okay, so that's the dial, okay? And very easily readable. And if you shine the light at it, you can see what it looks like at night. It's also very nice. Okay, let's start talking about the bracelet. Now, the bracelet is also redesigned from the previous generation. Before, okay, they had a totally weird bracelet. They had this rubber bracelet with a folding AP clasp that, to be honest, it just sucked. The AP clasp would ride up on your wrist all in a funny position. It's kind of hard to describe it to you here, other than to say that the previous generation, the clasp did not sit in the center of your wrist. No matter how hard you tried, it always would sit in the side, and it led for a very uncomfortable, strange wearing. And also, even though you could change the straps on the previous generation, you actually needed a double-sided screw because there was no quick release. And that was lame. So they solved that problem by simply making the strap interchangeable using this system. Now, the system has these two buttons. You simply press them simultaneously and you can pull out on the strap, which makes the strap really easy to change. You can change it to any color. To leather, for example, if you want to dress it up and make it more dress-like, you can do it to even white, for example, or gray, to match your outfit or mood or time of year. So it's a really cool thing, and you don't need tools anymore. Before you could change the straps, but really it was just a pain, and most people did it. So now you can change the straps with this easy system, and you can change the buckle as well. Very, very simple. It's an ingenious design. I'm not sure why AP took so long to do it. I believe Cartier was the first major brand to have straps that were interchangeable. AP soon caught on. I believe Patek has it, I guess, with their interchangeable spring bars on their leather, but I'm not sure I would count that. They don't do it on their rubber straps. And RM, Richard Mille, does not. They have it, but there's not an easy way to do it. You still have to have this tool. So AP right now and Cartier are the only ones that I know of, and not Rolex either, that can do this incredible interchangeable strap idea, which is really smart. Okay, that's enough about the strap. Oh, and the buckle. Buckle is very nice. It's just a normal pin buckle or belt buckle, I call it. Looks like a belt buckle. Okay. And now let's move on to that has also changed, right? Before, the buckle, by the way, was not secure, not good, no good. All right, and actually the old ones, off the old 42 millimeters that were similar to this, they had a really sharp edge, by the way. I'll mention this to you. I actually wore this watch quite some time, and the old generation, the reference 26470, had a buckle that was super duper sharp, and you could actually cut yourself on it. I don't know how come they did that, but they finally got rid of it in favor of these rounded ones, which are much safer to use. You can imagine your watch cutting you. I mean, strange. All right, now look, let's talk about the movement here. The movement is also redesigned, and I have to say this is one of the most the best parts of this watch is that the movement. The old movement, they were using this tiny movement, and I believe the diameter of the old movement was something like 28 millimeters, and they had to use this huge spacer on the previous generation 26470 to even make it fit. It was 28 millimeters, I believe. And actually, the old rubber clads didn't even have an exhibition case, so you couldn't even see the movement. It was completely flat. So that's a huge evolution for anyone who likes the rubber clad, which makes this one much better than the previous generation. And so you see from the movement is complete, big. It's 32 millimeters in a 42 millimeter watch, and you see the spacer around it is not very big. So that means this caliber, this movement, fits perfectly in the watch size that it's designed for. And what else can I say about it? Well, it's got a lot of parts. For chronograph, it's got 433 parts. Normal chronographs have somewhere in the high 200s, not usually 400. So that might be another reason why it's so thick. But even despite having all these parts, it has a power reserve of 70 hours, which is very large for, it's kind of the industry standard now. And AP is really is forcing the big dogs such as Rolex and Patek Philippe and Richard Mille to up their game and produce watches with 70-hour power reserve, because previously the standard was 48 hours, 2 days. Now it's 3 days. And AP, I believe, is the one leading the charge when it comes to that, because all their new calibers that were produced back in 2017 and later, they all have this 70-hour power reserve. Now it's become their standard, which is, it's a small thing that most people don't think about, but it's just a subtle way that AP is just showing, that they're way ahead of the curve. And they started doing that back in 2017. And Patek Philippe, for example, is still showing watches with power reserve of, 45. They say on their website between 45 and 55 hours. I mean, that's basically 2 days. So, they're going to, and I suspect that very soon they're going to start upping their game and getting into the 70-hour power reserve. Okay, power reserve, by the way, is just how long you can leave the watch unwound, just sitting on your desk, and then come back and pick it up and it'll still work. Okay, anyways, that is the movement. Very beautifully done. And I should also say the rotor, I think, is also done to perfection. It's one of the most beautiful movements. In fact, I may even say it's better looking than the Patek movement, but not better than the manual wind movement. This was a automatic movement. I really like the rotor. It looks great. Cut out rotor, gold. I mean, what's there not to like? All right, now let's try this watch on my wrist and give you my thoughts. My thoughts are, this is a fantastic watch. Now, it's not for everybody, okay? It's a expensive watch, $50,000 around there. The retail on this is a little bit more. We're selling it under retail at the moment. Retail something like $57,000, and now we're selling it at jazztime.com around $50,000. And so it's a great bargain, and as far as Offshore goes, they do make a 43, but the 42 is probably going to fit more people better, even though a lot of people try to get the 43s. And as far as luxurious sports watch, this is one of the top ones. And they make other ones in steel, titanium, with green dial, with blue dial, etc., etc. But the rose gold is top of the food chain when you're talking luxuriousness. They even make it in ceramic, by the way. I really like it in this rose gold, and it has a great history. The previous generations that it came from, it has a great history. Okay, look, so if you want to buy this, go to jazztime.com or click on the link in the description below.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.